service above self.
And we're going to turn to the flag and recite the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and in memory of those we've lost and things going on in the world today that aren't so great, I'd like to call for a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. We do one more thing as part of our opening. We turn it over to Alan Burns to give us a song that we're all going to sing.
All right, recognizing Memorial Day, which is coming right up, I want to do in memory of them and sing God Bless America. All right.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Nice touch. Wow. Okay, and we're going to ask the young people from Northampton to, let's go around the table. We'll start with the fearless leader. You give us your name.
Well, Mike.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Mike Zoden. I'm the lead mentor and coach for the Northampton Robotics Club. We're team 19 and 8 to Shorebots. Thanks for having us here.
I'm Abby Zoden. I'm a member of the team. I'm Ashley Zoden, and I'm also a member of the team.
I'm Tyler Zoden. I'm the captain of the team.
I'm Skylar Rothman, I'm a member of the team.
Okay. All right. Do we have any other guests today? Go ahead, Paul.
For one last week,
Yes.
Graham Bisbee has been approved by the board as a new member, and you will announce him, of
Yeah.
course, as
I'll do that right now while you
Yeah.
brought it up. We take 1 week to think about Graham. If you have any questions or concerns, you can get with me or anybody on the board of directors. But in 1 week, we fully expect Graham to rejoin a Rotary Club, this time with Cape Charles. So way to go, Graham.
Hey!
Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to get started on this food over here before it gets cold. We're going to ask the guests to get in line first. So that's the Northampton County group.
Yeah. Guess for
And
one more
then
week.
following them, ladies, and then the rest of the group.
Hey, Bill Payne.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm not there today because we've got a baptism for 2 grandkids in Roanoke, and I'm just a little concerned about the fact that COVID's going up again.
Not, oh, yeah. So, but you showed up at the meeting last night, Dave. That 2-hour meeting. I said, after a long day, that's all. I don't need another 2-hour meeting. So what I'm going to do, I'm recording now, Dave. I'm going to pause the recording and I'll start us back up after everybody's been in the food line.
Okay, Bill.
All right. Thanks for joining and be safe.
Okay.
Maybe and stuff. I'm a maybe also.
Okay. And I talked to Kristen. I'm actually going to meet with her after this meeting. I'm driving up to the Vic, and she's going to brief me on how this all works. So we will be there Saturday at 10 a.m. You don't have to stay until 4. I did talk to her about that. She said if we can be there just for the initial parking for the first couple of hours. that'd be great. People will stagger as they leave, so we don't need to direct traffic then. But I will go through the mechanics of how that's gonna work Saturday with her today, and we need to be there around 10 a.m. on Saturday. Bill, I'll ask you, we haven't heard in a while, any updates on the Mary Smith building, school building?
It's still there.
All right, any more work plans?
No, we're finished.
Okay, okay. Do we have any other
Report-
updates
report's
from
been filed.
anybody in the
Then
club?
report's finished.
Anything anybody want to bring up? Yeah, go ahead, Al.
So I'm doing the speakers committee and there's a lot of people that help are going to be helping. And we have some dates open in August through the end of the year. And I'm just going to say, for those of you who have booked guests, thank you very much. To book guests to speak, thank you very much. And anybody else, give us a call. And if you need me to reach out to somebody to schedule a speaker, I'll be happy to do it, or somebody on the committee. Yes.
Al, I have somebody that I would like to speak to the club, but I would like for them to be able to get in before August. Because the organization is running a capital campaign and it's going on now.
Well, why don't you guys talk after the
Yeah,
meeting?
I'll catch up to you.
I didn't have anything else to say, Jim. That was it.
In any event, so let me know, or anybody on the speakers committee know, if you know of anybody that we should reach out to schedule them to be, speak at the meeting. Thanks.
Yeah, and of course, what you need to provide is a contact person, the name, as well as a phone number and an email address, so we can reach them in a couple of different ways.
Hey, Chuck,
Yeah,
we are hopeful, and I say hopeful, I'm making crab cakes this time. The reason I say hopeful, crab meat is really hard to come by.
Oh,
And so even if we eat, and I think price is not gonna be a problem, nobody's have to pass it on to our customers, but pardon me. Our user provider hadn't gotten back to this on unusual. Jim was telling somebody he dealt with, they're getting about a third, or maybe 25% of what they've been getting before. So we're just all again customers to this guy. So I don't have any assurance we're going to have traffic. So if you have any thoughts about that, know anybody wants to rob a truck or something like that, let's do it.
all right. Or if you have a good day out on the bay crabbing. That sounds
Yeah,
good.
all right, really good day.
All right, any other updates? Okay. Well, it's my pleasure. We have an award-winning team here today.
Happy dog.
Oh, yeah, we're gonna do happy dollars. That's right. All right, anybody happy? You got happy dollars.
How happy are you?
And how happy are you?
I'll start
Go
out.
ahead, Paul.
I'm happy that Graham Bisbee has agreed to join our club, and I want to welcome him. $5 worth of happy.
All right, thank you very much. You were a member before, which club?
It was Hampton and Newport News and Virginia Beach, actually.
Okay.
Because I moved
Moved
around.
around.
Just across the bay from.
But he hadn't been in Rotary for what? How many years was it?
Probably 10 years.
Probably 10 years.
All
And
right.
and I looked for him on the Rotary International database,
Mhm.
and that apparently don't go back more than 10 years. So I came up with nothing. So I
So you
sent
thought I
him.
was telling a story, right?
So I was wondering about Graham.
He was a
So I
lion.
sent an inquiry in, and they researched it and answered it and sent me a nice reply. And he is a Paul Harris Fellow, and
Oh,
Yes. Okay, John.
I've got $10, $5 for Grand Joint John. As you might remember, I've been to Yale, Columbia, Dartmouth. Last week, I went to the judges conference at Spouse, where I'm always in trouble with that. But I slummed it at that school, must be Buckley School, it's called the one over there in Charlottesville, my granddaughter. And about $5 escaping that. I guess it's a beautiful campus. I did that a couple of days at Charlottesville. all free time, not good. About that.
Okay. And Bill Payne.
Yes, I'm happy to the tune of $15, 5 of which is just to beat John.
Hey, Bill, I have to pay my bill for several months, so you don't have to meet me right now.
Nor have I.
You're gonna have to get a second job, Bill. You keep having all these happy dollars.
I don't have a job at all.
You need one.
And $10 is an expression of my delightment because on Friday morning, Jackie and I are headed for Savannah, Georgia. And we'll see how that goes.
I may not come back.
Oh, wouldn't that be a delight?
Yeah, for both of us.
I don't know if you've ever been there before, but it's a pretty city.
Oh, that's why we're going back. Been there many times.
Yeah, yeah.
In fact, Savannah was beaten out by Cape Charles. We were about to move there.
It's, they've got beautiful trees down there.
And good food.
Yeah, good food, so, and nice
Too
food.
hot there.
Yeah, it's too hot. That's
Any more happy dollars? All right. Well, again, it's my pleasure for a second time to welcome our guest today, award-winning Northampton High School folks who competed and won a very distinguishing position in the rankings of all the schools that competed for the robotics award. So without further ado, I want to turn this over the program to the team. Let's hear it for the robotics team.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can still use that. I'll just. Check.
You got it. You got it.
So thank you all for having us. My name is Mike Zoden. I'm the lead coach and mentor of the Northampton robotics team, 13 number 1908. So I'll explain the numbering system in a minute, but we're based out of Northampton High School. And our team name is the Shorebots. And the kids are going to introduce themselves to you today, tell you about the program, tell you how appreciative they are for the support that you all showed us at the end of the season last year. Or actually, it's still this year, but it was our last year's season. And I'm going to turn it over to them because this is a student-led program, so they're going to be the ones to tell you all about it.
Hi, I'm Abby. I'm gonna be basically the lead presenter today. A little bit. I'm the best public speaker. I was part of the electronics part of the Shorebots, and I'm an 8th grader.
I'm Tyler. I'm the team captain. I've worked mostly with the building of like the metal and stuff on the robot. And yeah, just kind of did a little bit of everything. I'll go quick. All right. I'm Skylar Upton, of course. I did a lot of the building aspect of it.
I'm Ashley Zoden, and I'm a 6th grader on the robotics team. I just mostly help the little things that people need help with.
You were also lead scouter.
I was also lead scouter, which I will tell you what scouting is later. So we're gonna get started with.
I'm Stephanie Zoden. I was one of the mentors. I know nothing about building robots.
She has common sense.
I teach early childhood education. So this is far above my pay grade. But I led the cheer section. Worked on the hotel. Meals. These are high schoolers and they can eat. So I do feel like my job was very important.
And we also have some other folks that couldn't be here today. We have 3 seniors that, if you know anything about the timing of the school year, they're done at this point. So they didn't come today, but this is all the underclassmen. So it is a very small team. So they're all going to be coming back next year. hopefully, and then we'll have another successful season. We also have some other mentors. We have Matt Goldstein. He typically helps with programming. We have Tim Anderson, who also helps with programming. And then we have Elvin Hess, who does a lot of the mechanical, electrical, engines, motors, those kind of things.
Tim was new this year and above and beyond, probably the best addition to the team for years. He brought a lot of knowledge and is very patient, and I love it.
So we're gonna start it with basically telling you about what our program called FIRST is. It's a global organization with about 8,000 teams worldwide, meaning all across the globe. This is not just the USA. And it's basically a robotics organization, but it's also more than robots. It's an outreach. It's teaching young ones what we can do with certain things, and then eventually getting them to do this awesome stuff. Every year in January, we all get together for what we call the kickoff event, where we learn about this year's challenge or this year's game, where basically they give you something that you have to accomplish. This year, it was shooting these little fuzzy balls that look like softballs into a big old hoop. It's like 4 feet wide. There was a little one on the bottom that you could also shoot into. The way we did this is we put some wheels on there and they spin really fast and they shoot a ball. That's the basic part of it. This is basically what the field looks like if it were to be a tiny printed version.
Here, once you bring it out front, and let's bring the stools. The stools too.
That's a 3D model
I
of
printed all
the
that.
field. The little,
You want to set it down? Or
little
do you want to
yellow
walk
and red
it?
ones are robots.
Oh, okay, good.
Put it down a little bit.
So the little game pieces are essentially robots that look like this. If that gives you an idea of how big the field is.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's the hoop in the middle right there?
Yeah, this is the.
Every year we get a different challenge. So it's not always you shoot a hoop, you shoot a ball into a basket.
Yeah.
It could be as much as you're throwing a frisbee across an entire field, or you're loading what we call cargo into certain parts and parts of the field. So it's different every year, and we build the entire robot from scratch. We have what we call a kit of parts. Basically, they give us the little frame, and we build the rest. So this is basically, we did all of this from here up. We also have to build the frame.
They only give us the parts.
They give us the parts of the frame, but we build it.
And they will turn it on for you, but
Yeah.
it gets a little noisy when it's driving.
We have some cool LED lights on there too. We usually have about 8 weeks to build one of these, which is not a lot of time. So it's always crunch time. The first week after what we call the kickoff, we're mainly brainstorming and working together as a team to come up with ideas like this. And that plays into all of our like creativity and like what you might have thought of, somebody else might have a completely different idea. So it takes a lot of tweaking and working with it. Okay.
So there are really two main core values of FIRST. The first one is cooperation. It's a made-up word by Woody Flowers was one of the founders of FIRST. He died a few years ago, but he came up with the word cooperation, which means it's a cooperative competition. Because sometimes you might be working with the team, like, because each team is made up of 3 different teams on one team,
Like
2 different teams of 3 teams going against each other.
Playing the game.
Yeah, for the actual game. So you may be working with one team for one match, but then going against them for the next one. So it's a cooperation, it's a cooperative, but also competitive competition. And the other is gracious professionalism. which is just pretty much sportsmanlike conduct, really. It's just being nice to other teams, not being, oh, I won, or I lost. It was a good game. It's just being nice to everyone and having a good time with the competition. So we'll talk next. You wanna talk about some of the tools?
Yeah, sure, I'll use some of the tools. All right, so we basically use any kind of tool you can think of. We started off with screwdrivers and drills, and then moved on to different kinds of saws in order to get the right cut. And we had to do a couple of different measurements and different things. It was interesting to figure out.
What was the most challenging part of the construction?
Figuring out the right angle for this to shoot.
It's a curve
That
inside.
was, yeah.
I
At first we
disagree.
made it,
I think building the drivetrain 2 or 3 times.
yeah,
We
We had a
definitely
few
had to take it
broken-
apart.
kinks there.
One motor wasn't working
Yeah.
because of a nut or something.
Yeah, there was a little
Supposed to be
piece that
like
was
this, but it was like
a
this.
little bit too tall
There's,
for.
Yeah.
there's no instructions. It's not even IKEA where you get pictures.
Oh.
So it's all problem solving. It's teaching kids to, work the problem, figure out the problem. As they mentioned, this is the solution that this team came up with to shoot the balls. And they didn't even talk about the fact that you have to climb. The whole robot has to climb as part of this challenge. But different teams had turrets that as the robot would drive, the turret would auto aim itself and shoot. Other ones used like slingshot methods. Other ones used like dump truck methods.
Yeah.
So every team comes up with these amazing ideas that all solve the same problem, but it gets them into, using their fresh young minds to come up with any idea they can and then build it to make it work.
There's a million possibilities.
You wanna go next?
Everybody's a big aspect of scouting.
On the robotics team, I was called what is a senior scouter, which I was the only scouter, which is basically you watch a match and you write down everything about these robots, like what they can do, what they're good at, what they're bad at. Because in the end, there's what we call alliance picking, which you basically try to pick the best teams, but some teams aren't available because they've been picked by other teams. So you try to write down which ones are the best, be able to pick them. And also, it's not just for alliance picking. Also, the drive team can like text us like, we need info on this team. We need to figure out like how we can maneuver around them. Like, what are they really good at? I was mostly part of that. Yeah. And I'm gonna actually like explain what our game was this year. Our game this year was called Rapid React. It was sponsored by Boeing, plane company. And basically the whole game was that they give you these balls and there's the low hub and the higher hub, which you can see there. And you have to figure out a way to get the balls into those hubs. It doesn't matter what way or how you did it. You have to get them in there and score the most points before the end game. There's basically, there's 3 portions of the game. There's the autonomous mode, which is basically where our programmers program a set of instructions for our robot to do without driver control at all. We put the robot on the field and it does it itself. That's how great our programmers are. So our autonomous we have multiple of them because you never know what we might need. And it shot 1 or 2 balls. I don't think we ever got 3. We got 1 or 2 balls every time. We were very accurate with that. And then the next portion is what we call teleop, or the teleoperated period, where our drivers control the robot for 2 minutes and 15 seconds. Right? Okay, I got that right. And Tyler's our driver here. There was various people on what we call the drive team, which consisted of like 4 people plus our coach usually. And he controlled the robot and drove it around the field. Very good driver.
There's offense, there's defense. It's just like a basketball game, a football game. All that's happening all in that 2-minute period at that point.
And usually you have to strategize with your other alliance members, which is two completely different teams. So you have to figure out what they can do, what you can do, how your skills can complement each other, how you can work well together. It's challenging sometimes.
It's 3 teams versus 3 teams.
Yeah.
Red versus blue. Evil versus
Good versus good with cooperation.
good. Sure,
Yeah, sure. We're always the good team.
And go to the end game, Abby, then you have some questions.
And now we have endgame, which is basically the end game this year was there is 4 levels of bars where our robots had to hang like off the ground. Where, well, the way that we solve this problem is that these flip up and we drive our robot straight into the bars and it basically slides up and over the bars and hangs here, hangs about 1 or 2 inches off the ground.
This is an inverted wedge, so when the robot drives into a bar, there's enough momentum so that the robot will kind of just like, the bar will just pull the robot up under it and it'll just sit in this little hole right here.
They were able to hang on the mid rung when these were up, where they could turn around and go backwards and hit the bottom rung. But if they wanted to go for the mid rung, they would drive and it would hit the low rung and pop these up to be able to hit the mid rung.
Neat. Wow.
Do we have any questions?
I was gonna ask, I think you answered it though, whether this whole operation was autonomous or was it being driven by a remote control person?
The first 15 seconds of the game are autonomous. They're
Okay.
completely programmed. Our driver is literally not allowed to touch the control panel. And then for 2 minutes and 15 seconds, plus the end game, it's all teleoperated. So he controls it with our little knockoff Xbox
Okay.
controller.
And then the second question I had was, did you, as a team, come up with an idea that you said, let's try this, but there's no way it's gonna work. It's a crazy idea. But then it turned out that the idea did work. Did you have one of those kind of moments?
We had a lot of trouble getting these hangers to work. There was a lot of working with it. And at some points, we were very skeptical of whether it was going to work at all in the end. But we kept at it and we kept working with it. And we think it turned out really well.
Good for you.
I can point out all the things that were kind of just, we tried it out and it worked. This.
That idea of cooperation, you know, and some teams are very secretive about, you know, they don't release anything they're doing until the day of the competition. Other teams post things online, things that work for them, things they try. So they did a lot of internet research of YouTube, you know, hey, we use this kind of wheel for intake. We use this mechanism was not this team's design. It was one team builds their own amazing robot every year, and they build essentially a low cost, easy to make robot that you can pick and use ideas from. And that's where these hooks actually came from, is one of their ideas. They said, hey, if you don't want to have motors and deal with pneumatics and do all these other crazy things you can do, this is a passive mechanism to climb. So some ideas were theirs, some ideas were off the internet. Other ones were just luck at the draw and it worked, as Tyler pointed out.
You got 2 questions.
So I was wondering how many of these robots are on the field at the same time?
There's
6.
6 of
3
them.
on each team.
And are they trying to knock each other out of position, or are they just mainly go to?
You are allowed to do defense. To an
It's not
extent.
battle bots.
It's
They
not
don't
battle
destroy.
bots. You're not trying to destroy other teams. I mean, there was some teams that were trying to destroy. You're not supposed to do that. We don't want you to do that.
But you're not trying to steal, so there's red balls and blue balls. So if you were on the blue team, you would be going for all the blue colored cargo. And you're only allowed to carry 1 red cargo, so that, you know, they kind of solve a lot of the problems ahead of time, whereas, oh, well, I'll just go grab all the red balls and throw them over here, and then they can't get to them. That's an easy way to keep them from scoring. So really, you should just be going for your own cargo, but some bots don't work. When you get to competition, I mean, you pay for competition before you ever get there. So they show up and their robot can drive around and that's all they can do. And so they play defense. They get in the way, you know, bump, things like that.
Yes, there are obviously many disciplines here, physical, mechanical, electrical, electronic, electromagnetic, all kinds of different. How did you organize yourselves so that you could focus on those different disciplines that were necessary to put this whole plan together?
Well,
Did you
a
have
lot-
people that specialize in different things?
There's actually there's usually 3 different teams with robotics. Obviously, there's some subdivisions and other things like scouting or mentoring, cheering, team spirit. But there's the 3 main teams, which are basically build, electronics, and programming. All of our programmers were seniors this year. We're gonna see how that works out next year. But they weren't here with us today, but our programming team was great this year. So was our build team and me. I'm pretty great. Very humble.
You're a software
Yeah,
developer, we use
Just
Java.
like me.
I was just gonna ask you, it's all Java based?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Good job.
There's a set of libraries that have a lot of the commands, but it's still a lot of logic and programming that they have to do.
That was my
But all the,
question.
like the motor controllers, there's classes for all that they're allowed to use.
So these seniors are the ones that are gonna take my job? That's good. I wanna retire.
If
So
you're
you-
interested in volunteering, we're always looking for.
So you have to teach yourself the programming language?
Yeah, we have some mentors, Tim Anderson and Matt Goldstein, that are our main programming mentors. They work specifically with that group and they teach them how to work with that sort of stuff. We also use a program called Code Academy, where basically you just learn the code and learn how to use it. Our mentors go a little bit deeper than the program though.
I was a programmer once.
To give you an idea of what they program, so to start the game, you have to start in these boxes. And then there are the balls at certain places on the field. So the programmers set it up, you're allowed to hold one piece of cargo before the game starts. They programmed it to drive a certain distance forward, grab a second ball, do a 180, turn around, shoot, to both go in the high hub, and then, you know, back up. You had to be out of the square to earn a point for called taxiing in the beginning. But there was another, you know, there was what we called the wall ball, where it was really, really close to the wall and no other teams would even try to get that one during autonomous, but our programmers figured out how to do it. And it's millimeters of movement and degrees and.
Just one comment. I don't see one piece of duct tape on there.
Oh, you just can't see. There's
Oh,
zip ties. We use a lot.
There are zip ties though.
Yeah, we had to make a lot of tweaks at competition, but it plays a lot more into the cooperation part. There's a lot of different things at competition with all different skills and things that they know how to do, and they have a lot of different resources. Often at competitions, different teams will just go and help other people that have something broken. That's just part of it. You want to play against other teams that are at their best, not you at your best and them with a broken robot. I already said it.
What place did you all rank?
In our competition, in our district, we ranked.
Second
In the
with
whole
the
thing.
whole thing,
In the whole
or
thing.
points. It was
We
20
ranked
something.
30, 21.
20, yeah, something, 20.
We ranked somewhere in the 20s in like the entirety of the first Chesapeake, which has about
The first Chesapeake is not Chesapeake like the town. It's Maryland, DC, and Virginia. But to give you an idea, if you're a sports person thinking about high school sports, you have, it used to be single A, double A, triple A. You know, we were always single A, little guys, across the bay, Great Bridge, all of them, they're triple A. Single A and triple A all compete against each other in first. There's no division of size of school separated. So we would go to competitions with our 7 kids and be against schools that they would have 7 kids on their promotion team.
They would have like
25
kids in
programmers. Yeah.
30 build team.
30 on the build team. Some of these teams would build 3 or 4 robots
And then
and then
choose the
decide
best
which one does the best. And we're lucky to get
One.
him.
Our pride and joy.
Yeah. So when you think about it in perspective of, we're going against the teams that have thousands of kids in their high schools, and they get to choose who's on their team. We don't choose who's on the team. If you join robotics, you join robotics, and we'll find a spot for you.
We will never ever deny anybody.
No, we include everyone, all makes and models of kids. If you're interested, we'll find something that you're good at that we can use.
Great.
Well, just curious, what's been the interest level in the school as far as kids trying out? I mean, you got a lot of kids that.
After this season, we've had a lot of interest.
We had usually, in past years, there's been about 12 to 15 kids on a team. Before this season, I think we had 22 interested. We ended up with 12 at the first meeting, and we ended up with 7 2 weeks into it. But because the team did so well this year, they qualified for the district championship. They then placed 14th out of the district championship, 20th or 21st overall.
Out of like 120 teams, we got like 20s.
We did a lot of promotions.
Round of applause.
The school administrators to get these, there's live streams of this. It looks just like ESPN. There's, overlays and live action. There's usually commentators. All of that was played in the classrooms, especially during the district championship, for these students to see, hey, there's a program at my own school that can do this really cool thing that if I'm not an athlete, this is mathletes. Like, come on in, join the team. You don't have to know how to program. We teach you. You don't have to know how to use a drill. Skylar will teach you. And typically there's 3 levels. So it starts with what they call Lego League. So it's anywhere from, I think, 4 to 7-year-olds for Lego League. There's then FTC, which is First Technology Challenge, First Tech Challenge. That's usually for up to about middle school. And then we have First Robotics competition, which is the high school level. But Northampton doesn't have a Lego League and doesn't have a Tech Challenge League. So we have 6th grade on up, which again is our own feeder program of the 6th grader, the 8th grader that have been in it for a year or 2 that learn these things. And then Northampton received a couple grants. They built new STEM labs that hopefully are going to be an additional feeder program in the coming years that kids can learn, understand robotics. And then the program of First, again, is supposed to be more than robots. So this team is supposed to be doing outreach events like this where people learn about it, going to science fairs, coming to the school and doing, STEM night, those kind of things. The YMCA down here is talking about, they reached out to me recently about, can we come in and do a STEM day for some of the kids that do the day program in the summertime? So trying to spread technology and let people know there's opportunities and not just you have to be able to kick a ball or hit a bat, You got to score the goal in the thing. You can score a goal in the thing with this and let it do the work for you, and it's a whole lot cooler than some baseball or basketball.
Which is cool too.
That's cool too.
And you can do sports and robotics, but robotics.
And this is a Virginia high school recognized sport. So these are athletes right here.
Yes, one last comment.
I'm just, you were gonna tell us the 1908, they're gonna go Ben's was born.
I'm just looking at this.
Oh, the numbers, yeah. Basically, there's about 8,000 teams worldwide in the first program. The number is basically when you register and what team out of that 8,000 you are.
Like, we were the 1,908 team to register 20 years ago.
Yeah.
We're a 17-year-old program.
Great.
Yes. Many years ago, we put diodes and resistors and capacitors on breadboards, right? Now we see these types of things being done by a high school student. That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's when Tyler started with robotics, Mr. Goldstein, Jim Goldstein was still one of the mentors and helping, and took Tyler under his wing and taught him everything electronics. Which then pushed Tyler into deciding to do dual enrollment at the community college and is working on an associate's degree, still in high school, with electronics. He changed his whole career path because of robotics and teaching him about electronics. Our iron at home wasn't working anymore, and Tyler said, I can rewire it. And literally rewired our iron, and now it works, and we didn't have to buy a new iron. More than robotics. More than robotics. The board is just insane.
Do we get a demo?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, we will.
You have enough space.
Yeah, they're gonna run it. This thing can shoot 18 feet in the air. They're gonna run it just where it kind of dumps the ball out, so we're not gonna damage this beautiful building.
We had 2 speeds.
Yeah, really.
One for the low goal, which is what we're probably gonna demonstrate here, and one for the high goal. The high goal is like 10 feet in the air.
So more points for the high goal, less
Yes,
points?
there was 2 points for the high, 1 point for the low.
So did you strategize and say, well, you know, if you shoot twice as many low balls, we can make up the points, or you?
We actually did at the beginning of the season say we were gonna go for the low goal.
Yeah.
We decided that it'd be better to cycle through more times than it would to get an extra point going for the high goal. But as we went through, we realized that it's about the same amount of time that we can cycle if we go for the high goal. So
They decided on the high goal once they got the shooter working and realized that they could just speed up the shooting wheel. And it was a crazy accurate shot. So someone asked about falling into things. High goal, we fell into.
For somebody who knows nothing about it, you're doing very well.
And I've learned, again, not my knowledge base at all.
yeah, we got the robotics part and then we got the common sense part.
Chief Common Sense Officer.
That strategy discussion must have been fantastic. That's problem solving. That's awesome.
Is there any more questions before we start the demo?
You started off with a basic kit that they supplied that was, I guess, mechanical and
It's
became.
just the frame.
The
They just
foundation.
give you the.
They give us some metal.
Are there rules or regulations on what you can add? In other words, where can you go for the resources that?
There's a manual about 180 pages each year. You have to read through all the rules. It tells you what type of motors, what type of controllers, what type of sensors.
How high you can go, how high you can
Yeah,
go.
there's limitations on the size, the speed, all
The
that.
weight, it
Can't
can
have
only
five
weigh
robots.
120 pounds. So some teams who have trouble building a robot, that can do things, literally build a robot at 120 pounds, because those are the best defense bots, because they can push the little guys all around the field if they want to.
We had actually a pretty light robot this year. Ours only weighs about 85 pounds, I think, which is actually, as much as that seems, it's a pretty low amount for a robot. Most teams weigh about 100 or more.
May I ask what's your population in Northampton for the students?
How many students?
Like 400.
That's
No,
about,
for the-
it's
that's for the high school.
about 100 per grade, usually, sometimes more than that.
Going
Sometimes less.
to schools that got that.
Yeah.
Very good.
Demo.
These are on those. The intake they fell into as well, they
Wow.
to make it grab, and gravity worked.
Well, hold out your arms.
Very nice.
Intake will come up, fall back down.
There's actually a pretty cool reason that we have that. There was a very, very heavy defense bot at actually our second competition. We usually compete 2. And then there's the district championship if we get there, and then worlds. We fell just short of worlds this year,
Oh.
but we're aiming for that next year. But at our second competition, we actually got pretty heavily damaged because from our intake because of a heavy defense spot, and we realized that they were getting a lot of penalty points out of us because they were able to pin us. And then if we were to even move slightly and hit them with our intake just slightly, it would get a lot of penalty points from us. So we realized that we needed this and came up with that.
Sorry, and what did it do that somehow nullified the advantage of the defensive line?
If your part of your robot was inside part of another robot,
Or hit it.
you got a penalty. So they would pin us, but then the intake had to start in the upward position and then they like roll a wheel and it would fall down. Because they couldn't pick it back up, the intake would end up touching the inside of another robot, and then it was 1 second, 2 second, 3 second, penalty.
Yeah, we were getting a lot of points for them just because they were pinning us. They were kind of dirty players, but we've made peace with it. They didn't get to Worlds either, so.
How do you aim the ball to the target?
We actually have 2 webcams. Sorry, I'm talking about that. Or-
Do you have it up
there for the cameras?
Yeah, it's hard to show them, all right. Here's the duct tape you were asking about. So we have 2 cameras. One is aimed like up that way, so we can see where we're shooting towards, and the other is aimed down, so I can see like what balls I'm picking up. And these just give us, because we can get the field out.
There's markings on the field.
So like if we're on blue team, we might be like sitting over here behind the player, what's called the player station. And so when our robot's back way over here, we might not be able to see it. So we might not be able to see like what balls I'm picking up. So we put cameras on there, so there's no confusion.
How big is,
There's
yeah, how big
zones
is the
on the
field?
field, so they would know when you're on the line,
Yeah.
that's the angle you need to be at.
What size is the field? Like about how
It's like
big?
a basketball court.
Yeah, it's a fairly big field, and there was this giant thing in the middle of it. It got kind of hard to see when you were, especially when you were like across the field trying to get balls or shoot. So we kind of needed that.
And in previous years, there's another device that we have that essentially shoots a bright green light, and there's reflective tape on whatever you're shooting at, and then you can use programming algorithms to figure out, is that, square I'm supposed to be aiming for the right size, so it goes further back to the right distance.
And while that seems really, really cool, we decided not to do that this year because it was a lot of extra programming and doing a lot with that. And even though we didn't have that extra programming and that extra work for our programmers, we were ranked number 2 most accurate offensive team in our district.
Go ahead.
Just above us was well, not just above us. It was a bit, we had a graph basically. There was all the little teams down here, and then there was kind of us up here above them, and then the other team was like way over here, way above everybody else, because they were just really, really accurate. They had a really great shooter, and they were able to maneuver around the field better because they had what we call in the robotics world swerve drive, which is basically they can move any direction, whichever way they want to. We have what we call tank drive, where we can only we had tank drive this year. We're getting swerve drive next year. That shows just how much we needed it. Where this year we can only move forward and back, and then it would take us an extra minute to turn side to side. But next year we're upgrading a little bit.
You learned.
How much did this cost and where did the money come from?
Our main sponsor is actually NASA. We also have some smaller sponsors like Ace Hardware. They give us some money every year to like go to their store and get nuts and bolts, and we get a discount usually. And we get what we need, because we buy a lot of stuff.
And the Cape Charles Rotary Club.
Yay!
Our district championship this year, being able to afford, all like our hotels and our food and stuff like that, helping us get there. which we thank you all for.
But the components itself on a robot usually cost, that's around $5,000 for all the components. It doesn't look like much, but it adds up quickly. It's, a lot of the electronic components are the most expensive.
Made of metal and plexiglass.
Well, even that, and construction material, metal and plexiglass is expensive.
Yeah, and like I said, our main sponsor is NASA Wall Site Facility up in Chincoteague. They give us a lot of our money every year. They also support a lot of their teams in the first world. They support like we're one of 2 house teams in from the shore. Another one is located a bit up in Maryland. But we're very thankful to be part of NASA. We get most of our money from there. And that's what helped us support Sport Dragons here.
We also have ShopBot. They helped us with plexiglass. Yeah, just cut it.
Yeah,
Still young and next more.
Yeah, he has a CNC machine, so it cut these, which we would have never been able to do by hand. Because as you can see, that's a lot of intricate details there. And it just made it a whole lot easier.
Everything else other than the hook things, all that's cut by hand with like a saw or a drill press. Yeah,
The propulsion system for the ball being shot, is it the orange and green wheels that send it flying?
Yes, Kyle, do you want to explain the mechanics of the robot and like how to shoot it?
Yeah, sure. So the green wheels right here, they feed it up to about right here where this bar is. And then they run at a slower speed than the orange wheels. So when it feeds it up to the orange wheels, it's pushing up against here, pushing this back a little bit, and that gives it a little bit of an angle, and that's how it goes in there.
Is the competition the same every year? In other words, the same layout of the field over the
The field is usually the same size every year, more or less. Like it would vary by like maybe a foot, but it's the same size field every year, the same player station usually, but the rest of the components are completely different every year. So there was one in 2013 where you had to shoot a frisbee into
like a mail slot.
Into basically like a mail slot. There was like a high and a low one that you could put it into.
They've had to stack trash cans, they've had to stack milk
it should be-
crates, they've had to
It should be
Put a
run a
change.
wiffle ball, like
So
there
then
was
you
one a
can-
couple years ago, there were like 300 wiffle balls.
Here's my phone.
And teams basically vacuum them
Thank
up,
you.
like the golf
Thank you,
thing,
Jackie.
it goes down the drivetrain, pick them all up, and then literally shoot them, and the hole that year was only
We're
a
gonna
foot
get,
wide.
we're gonna get,
So literally
we're
had
gonna
to,
get
you know,
medics
giant
too.
arcs and-
Oh.
Again, and
We're
a
gonna-
lower,
Jackie,
I would
we're
say
gonna
lower
get
tier,
medics
and an
too.
inexperienced team like us would drive right next to
She's
it
the one
and
who's
shoot
at the
it.
prom.
Some of these amazing teams would shoot across the entire field and after
It hit it every time.
the frisbee game was actually back in 2013 before any of us were involved with this. They first designed that game, and then you would have to drive up within a few feet. And get the frisbees across this side of the field to go to that side of the field to shoot it. Figured out you stand here and get fed. And shoot across the field.
And they were so accurate with it. Like this was not like it's a 50-50 chance if we shoot across the field. Some teams were so accurate that like they were literally just getting fed, and then they just shoot. And the numbers of the points were in the hundreds.
I don't think the game makers expected that to happen.
No.
They totally destroyed the game. They made it so amazing by what they did, but it was not the intention, I believe.
And again, like the first game, it's so different every year that what you might have thought of, like what your team might have thought of, somebody else's team thought of a different idea and made a completely different robot.
Yeah.
But this robot, it won't work next year. The game will be so different and use such different pieces that won't do anything. It's made so that you literally have to build a new one every single year. This one was similar to the game 2 years ago. And then COVID hit that year. They were only able to do one competition. COVID hit, didn't get to do the second competition. Last year was fully virtual. Maybe this is a good entry point into your awards. So last year we won the engineering design award. Our team consisted of like
7 people.
Explain how you participated last year with it virtual.
What we did last year is basically there was a couple of options. There was, you could load your old robot into CAD and then have it compete basically virtually. But we didn't really have a lot of experience with the online designing and things of that. So we decided one of the other options was to create a game, create a first game. We did that. We created delivery deadline, where basically you had to take pool noodles, which we called the vaccines, and load them into cargo crates and then put them into the hangar for then a virtual robot, not a robot, like a helicopter, an imaginary helicopter, to come and take the thing and ship to other nations. Our game won the engineering design award for how well it was created, which means that in the coming years, we might see variations of our game come into play, or we might see our game come into play. Because the winner of the whole thing, like their game got to be one of the games to come in the next years. Obviously, First creates their games years in advance, so like next year's game has already been decided, and so has probably the next year's. But the year after that, maybe not. We might see components of our game.
So show the awards for this year then.
And this year we did really well too. We actually won the.
Will you bring them up close here?
We actually won 2 things. We got 4 plaques. We got 4 award things, 2 plaques, 2 trophies, because we're just cool like that. We won the quality award and the industrial design award for the quality of our robot and how well it was designed.
Look over
So,
here. There you go.
we did really well this year. In 17 years, I think we've only ever won a couple of awards. Last year was, I think, our 2nd award to ever be won with the engineering design award. And I think these are the 3rd and 4th. Because a couple of years back, we used a ladder as part of our robot, and that won an award for creativity. And then last year was obviously a really cool thing. In First, we have these things that we call the blue banners, which are like the highest tier of things you can get in First. And we got one of those for once. We had never gotten one of those before. But we did that last year, and that was like a crazy moment for our program.
The high school put it in the cafeteria.
The high school put it in the cafeteria, kind of like recognizing that we are a program. We're trying to get more out there and more into our high school to get more people involved, because this is a great program. We love it. It's fun. We make inside jokes. It's good. We have a lot of fun.
What do you do with the robot now?
You can probably-
Do you retire it or you use it?
So we kept the robot from 2 years ago, pretty much as is. We do try to take parts off to reuse them when we can. I mean, because stuff is relatively expensive. And usually after 2 or 3 years, we end up breaking them down. We had a student that was part of the program who didn't have a lot of experience doing anything, but absolutely loved breaking things down. So
Who doesn't?
for 3 Saturdays, he spent the entire day breaking down 2 or 3 robots and loved every minute of it. And that was a great example of, he had no experience, like he didn't have a lot of strengths in building or programming or coding. But he loved using the drill, the wrenches, all that, and had a great time breaking them down.
And there are off-season competitions, so in this fall, they're gonna compete in another competition outside of the usual season. And they can take this robot and continue to improve it before then, or just take it as is and just get one more competition. Try to get new kids to come to that and watch it and understand, because until you've been to a match, you don't really understand, what it looks like, and it's not as fun.
The competition is really fun. They usually play music like before the match begins, and everyone's dancing and having a great time. Some people even bring mascots with them and have huge costumes that everyone loves. It's just a really good time being at the competition. It's really high paced.
I don't think the high school has a mascot uniform anymore, do they?
They do, but
We're gonna
they
get
don't
a
use
new
it for
one.
football games.
No, they got a new one
It's,
recently.
It still looks old.
In the off season, we're working with a couple designers to maybe help us design a new logo that incorporates.
Kind of a
everything
robotics
that we
feel.
are, and then, you know, maybe that's a pipe dream that we have our own
We're gonna make
costume
our.
at some point.
Well, all I can say is I am really impressed. This young lady not only has a future as an engineer, but also a public speaker. Maybe even a teacher.
Tell anything to anyone.
There you go. We have one of those type here.
Oh, you two would get along so well.
I always say about Bill, he could sell a 100-pound rock to a drowning person. It's amazing what I see here. I went to school for engineering. My field was electrical engineering, and I'll tell you how long ago that was. Ever hear of vacuum tubes? That's what I was learning about. And as Reggie mentioned, capacitors, resistors, transistors were just starting to come in, and I moved into that. And then, of course, we graduated into integrated circuits, and that's something I'm sure you are all working with these days. But terrific work. We're really proud of you. So very much so. And I'm so glad to hear that it's kind of catching on in your school, the high-tech world. There's a good career in there, but it's also, just like you said, it's interesting, it's exciting, and you're doing something new. And one day, I hope you come up with a contraption that'll help me up and down the stairs when I need it something. So thank you all once again, and terrific work. And we're going to be keeping track of you next year's competition too. And we'll be there for you. So thank you all. All right, we're going to close out the meeting right now. And what we do is we tell you all about our four-way test. So if you could all stand. Number one.
Is it the truth?
Number two.
Is it fair to all concerned?
Number three.
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
And number four.
Will it be beneficial?
And Bill, I'll toss it to you for number five.
Will we have fun?
Yes, we will. Thank you all once again. Great work, great work.
That was good. That was great. I thought we were going to get a